Hi, I'm Tamara and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which describes 16 different types of personality. And the reason why I love Myers-Briggs so much is because the descriptions of your personality are so accurate that when you read it, you're like, how did somebody know me so well? How did they write about me like this? So it's really one of the best descriptors out there of what your personality is all about. I started learning about Myers-Briggs many years ago when I was in college because we used it for many different things. And eventually the college professors just gave it to me and I was their go-to girl for Myers-Briggs because I loved it, I ran with it. Everybody that I know their Myers-Briggs type indicators. So if you're struggling with what your personality type is and I know who you are, I probably already know what yours is. I almost don't know what life would be like without it. And being a counselor, it really helps me to understand people and help them to gain a better understanding of themselves as well as other people. So if you're really into Myers-Briggs, you probably want to hit the subscribe button because I'm going to start rolling out videos of each different type more in depth from what I've learned about them personally. I have a lot of knowledge to share and I just haven't ever had really a place where I could share this knowledge, but now I do. So I'm very, very excited to share with you what I've learned. So today I'm going to go through and explain exactly what the Myers-Briggs is in case anybody watching doesn't understand what it is. And I want you to take notes, or not even take notes, but just take mental notes. When you hear something that sounds like yourself, write it down or put it in your smartphone. But by the end, I hope you know what your personality type is. If you're really interested in learning more about Myers-Briggs, there are a lot of books that you can read about. Check out my library of books. Hey, this one brings back memories. I think I'll take a look at both of these. Okay, so the reason why I chose these books off of my library shelf is because they really are special to me. These books are by David Keirsey. This one is David Keirsey and Marilyn Bates. This one is just David Keirsey. But when I was in college, me and David Keirsey wrote each other a few times. And I remember my college professor saying, wow, authors like that never usually write people. But we actually exchanged letters and I was able to share with him my opinions of different things and what I agreed with and what I disagreed with. And so it was a great experience for me. As you can see, this book is falling completely apart. I don't know if you can tell, but the pages, some of them are just, it's a mess. But I've read these books that many times. So I'm real excited about today. So Myers-Briggs is comprised of 8 different letters, and when you combine them all together, they create personality types. So take a look at the different letters that you need to know in order to have a better understanding of Myers-Briggs and how the personality types work together. Are you an extrovert or an introvert? Are you a sensor or intuitive? Are you a thinker or a feeler? Are you a perceiver or a judger? At the end of this video, I'll give a brief description of each type. So try to figure out which letter fits you the best. In order to form an MBTI personality type, you have to choose one letter from each of these categories. Are you an E or an I, an S or an N, a T or an F, or a P or a J? So in order to understand Myers-Briggs, you have to know what each letter of your personality type stands for. Now I'm going to explain to you what each letter means. And we're going to start with E versus I.
The first letter of your personality type will either be an E or an I. Are you an extrovert or an introvert? This shows you how you gain your energy. Extroverts gain energy by being with others, while introverts gain energy by being alone. An extrovert speaks to clarify thoughts, and an introvert thinks to clarify their thoughts.
So sometimes if you're in a relationship or a friendship with somebody who's an extrovert versus an introvert, the frustration can come because extroverts get their energy from people, whereas introverts need a little bit more think time, or they need some downtime to rejuvenate after they've been around a lot of people. When they're by themselves, it helps them to rejuvenate and feel a lot better. So don't be offended by that. It's just how the different types operate. Also, you'll notice that extroverts have to talk out what their thoughts are before they know exactly what it is that they're thinking. Whereas an introvert may pause for a moment, think about what it is that they want to say, and then give you an answer.
The second letter of your Myers-Briggs personality type will either be an S or an N. Are you a sensor or are you intuitive? This is how we take in information. So a sensor takes in information via the five senses and facts. So they're basing their information on what they see and what they hear. Whereas an intuitive takes in information via patterns, impressions, and possibilities. They bypass the facts. So a sensor is more realistic, while an intuitive is more inventive. A sensor thinks in the here and now, whereas an intuitive person thinks of the future and what the possibilities might be. The S notices details, whereas the intuitive sees a big picture. And the sensor is more practical, while an intuitive person is more idealistic. A sensor looks at what's factual. It is what it is, whereas an intuitive person is more theoretical.
So let's talk a little bit more in depth about the N versus the S. They might get frustrated with each other because an N is going to want to theorize about things or hypothesize about something, whereas a sensor is, hey, I'm basing things on the facts. An N might also start in the middle of something and figure out how everything is going to look or how everything is going to be, whereas a sensor is going to be more detailed, step by step, or orderly, that type of thing.
The third letter of your MBTI type will either be a T or an F. Are you a thinker or a feeler? This is how we make decisions. So if you're a thinker, you will use your head more than your heart, and your decisions will be based on facts. If you're a feeler, you will use your heart more than your head, and your decisions will be based on values. A thinker judges based on logic, whereas a feeler judges based on feelings.
75% of men are thinkers and 75% of women are feelers. So that might give you a little bit more insight into what the thinking and feeling functions are all about. Thinkers are more objective, whereas feelers are going to be more subjective. So sometimes a feeler might get their feelings hurt by a thinker because they're basing things on how it makes somebody feel. I'm not going to hurt your feelings. Whereas a thinker might make their decision based on not how you feel about it or hurting your feelings, but on what is the logical, objective stance to take on it.
The fourth and final letter of your personality type will either be a J or a P. Are you a judger or a perceiver? This is your lifestyle preference, how you prefer to live your life. So if you're a judger, you prefer the world to be structured and planned. You need a sense of control. You like planning early. If you're a perceiver, you prefer the world to be open-ended. You find plans to be stifling. You need a sense of control. Leaving your options open is important to you. Judgers are more structured, whereas perceivers are more flexible. J's prefer to plan before taking action, and P's like to be spontaneous with actions. J's prefer to live their life by sticking to a plan, whereas P's tend to change plans midway.
So if you're in a relationship with a J and you're a P, or vice versa, you might have some frustrations and conflicts with each other because J's like things settled. P's like things to be open-ended. So a J might say, okay, let's plan what the day is going to look like. And a P is going to be like, well, I don't want to plan my day. I want to leave some room open so that in case I change my mind or I'm not feeling that when we get to that point, then I can change my mind. So it can cause some conflict with each other. However, there are just as many J's as there are P's in the world, and we need both.